I'd like to thank the Dollar More Foundation. We are part of the Lake City Creative Alliance. And the Continuum, this is a nice place to have this thing. And they more than welcome us to do so. Membership and the sponsorship, and especially for y'all. Y'all are the best, I would say. In 1945, we have a new turnover in the mayorship. Mr. George Anderson becomes the mayor for the next 2 years. He lived on McAllister Street. And there were a lot of folks running for city council. Dr. Carl Rogers, Dr. Raymond Askins, Dr. R.L. Cockfield's father, Wesley Singletary and Jack Trueluck, all ran for city council. Well, everybody can't win, you know. These are the guys that would lead the city for the next 2 years. Mayor Anderson, Mr. Moutry Epps, Mr. R.L. Coleman, Mr. Hoyt Hill, which was Miss Louise Whitehead's father, Dr. Carl Rogers, which was a pharmacist, Raymond Askins, Harry's daddy, and W.W. Singletary, which was Miss Mary Driggers' father. There was a big old flag that was dedicated in honor of 325 members or servicemen in this area. Former students, and they had a big ceremony, and all 3 major pastors had a part in it. And it was compiled by a list of former students. 8 of them will go. What you reckon to go for? The servicemen that died. But there was going to be more than 8 in this community.
Do you know where that list is now?
I can't hear you.
Flag is now in the high school out there?
No, down here.
It says they tabulated, they came up with a list of all the ones that served during World War II. Is that list available?
I don't know where it would be.
But the flag is now.
The flag's flown at the school. I don't know where the flag is either.
Oh, you don't know where it is today?
I have no idea where that flag is. Okay? He had 6 fires in 5 days. Caldwell Grist Mill, which is at the end of Rogers Avenue. I never heard of it before. Miss Lizzie Gravely's residence. Mr. Lyde Carter's barn caught on fire. And then we had 2 fires of a black cafe. One on Saul Street. I didn't know they had a black restaurant on Saul Street, and one on Henry Street, where the Bay Market is. Never did know that either. So I'm,
Was all this arson?
yeah,
Was arson?
I don't know. Really don't know. Okay. The girls during World War II, 1945, had a city basketball team. Jane Baldwin was on the varsity basketball team at the University of South Carolina. Miss Miriam Lee, who married who? Ross. Ross Rollins, okay, and had a brother named Kent Lee, who was an admiral in the Navy. Two girls from the Whitehead Infirmary. And they would play other teams like team in Florence, team in Scranton, and so forth.
What's the dehydration thing?
Dehydration, it would be like vegetables and stuff dehydrated. They'd be redrying, fruit and vegetables and stuff.
Those were used in the K rations during World War II. Lake Moore was in charge of that.
Oh, is that right?
Okay. Speak up, because Mr. Carter's going to tell us about the train wreck in a minute, too. This is the faculty in 1945. We had Miss Lizzie Gravely, Miss Emily Askins, Joanne Bowen. Joanne Bowen was Joanne Crouch, which is Janet Bowen's mother. Football team. The guy number 12 is Gene Moore, and he'll go play at Clemson. Number 8, Milton Matthews. Number 4, Richard Cook. Shay Hagan is in the crowd. Wesley Floyd. Billy Bird Williams, which is Aston Williams' son. Jimmy Lynch. Randy Gravely. All these were in 1944. Football team. This is a 1945 basketball team. Alice Parks, which is Dr. Parks' daughter. Sarah Flowers, Mary Walker Whitlock. Miss Sarah Louise Evans, which is Evans Godwin's mother. These are the guys. Not many. To your left is Cal Godwin. Beside him is Charlie Green. Milton Matthews. Wesley Floyd. Arnold Graham. Randy Gravely. Seemed like it all of them played every sport. Baby contest. Every so often we would have a baby contest. Used to have a couple friends of mine named Jackie and Sammy Singletary. Sister, I thought his sister was beautiful. Well, she won the baby contest. And then Johnny Langley won the boys.
Cantwell was community house.
The community house. It was at the swimming pool. Mr. Ed Roper, he was a prisoner of war with the Germans. And he said that when he came home, he was about as skinny as a rail. But he was captured and was prisoner of war during war for 1944, 1945. The Jewish congregation, the two Haydns spearheaded having a temple in King Street. They would either have to go down to Charleston or to Florence, and they wanted their own temple. And he had the communities of Manning, King Street, Somerton, Andrews, Greedyville, and others towns nearby. I didn't know there was that many Jews in that area, you know. The only Jew we have in Lake City today is Nancy Best, Nancy Barkington. Class of 1945. Now pay attention, because of the fact is there are some people like myself that was held back. Okay? We got Richard Cook, Arnold Graham, Paul Godwin, Sarah Frances Flowers, Nancy Birch, Fred Lackey, lived down the street from Rogers Avenue, Milton Matthews, Charlie Green, Josephine Smiley. Who is that? Mary Smoothy Cook. Jay Cook, Kenny Cook's mother. Judy Ward. Mary Walker Whitlock, which was Mr. Ted Whitlock's daughter, or Edward Whitlock, Ted Whitlock, Tony Whitlock, aunt. All right. Mr. Harris Carter was an eyewitness to this event.
Tell you about it?
Come on up here and tell us about it.
Don't get to be an eyewitness in Lake City, it's gonna be an event like that. This happened when steel.
Come over here so we can get you in camera. Come over here. Stand in front of me.
Take your mask off.
And take your mask off and tell the folks.
Okay.
Come over here. Stand in front of me.
All right. These two engines were headed south. There was a shift engine that used to work in Lake City every day because we had so many rail sidings. They had been on, you had two tracks in. You had the southbound track was on this side of the railroad, the northbound track was on the east side of the railroad. That shift engine moved from the northbound rail to the southbound rail and went up to where the Carter Jones building is. They were working that siding. They forgot to close the switch when they crossed over from the northbound to the southbound track. And I can still hear that engine coming down there with the whistle. I mean, they were blowing it, and they were doing everything they could to get in front of this double header. And those were two of the largest engines that ACL had back then, Atlantic Coastline. And this was right in front of where the old Gulf Oil plant was, and right as you get to Smith Oil Company on Ackline. And what happened, the engine got there just in time. You could hear them slam on brakes and the steel rubbing on steel when they tried to stop. They got there to the switch too late. They hit this lead engine right in the cow catcher, and the shift engine fell over just about against the fence where Thomas and McElveen is. And this engine rolled over and rolled down the bank. That back engine tilted over and almost went over, but the two of them disconnected just in time that one righted back up again. And we were standing right on the other side of the street from this. My sister and I, we were taking pictures with the camera. And we witnessed the whole thing. And the disappointing thing was, we had pictures of it. This engine was still straight up in the air and the wheels were still moving. And we took a picture of it and took the whole roll of film. We went down to the drugstore and turned film in to be sent off. They sent it off to James C. Green or something like that to be developed, and bought another roll of film. And we took more pictures the next day. We sent both of those rolls off to be developed. We never got either one of them back. Somebody said that the railroad probably paid somebody to get those two that we took because there was no one else there. I mean, we took pictures and it just happened. I always look every time somebody comes up with pictures of that record. I always look to see if I recognize any of them because no one else could have taken them. We were right there with the camera. But it was quite exciting, and the engineer and the fireman in that lead engine, one of them jumped out of the back and made it, and I watched as the engineer jumped out of the window on this side, that engine that fell on this side. And he came down there, those engines were real high. And he came down right ahead of the engine.
So they jumped out before they hit? They jumped out before they hit?
No, they were going over when he jumped out. And he hit his leg, I understand, on the window. And when he hit the ground limping. But he had to jump out of that engine to drop down to that bank. It was about as high as the top of the ceiling in here. But he hit the ground. And I thought the engine was going to roll over him, but he barely made it. And got out, because I know when he was running, he was limping on his left leg. I was afraid he wasn't going to make it. But they all made it.
Say anything about fatalities?
But I was a little disappointed because they sent these big cranes out of Virginia to pick those things up. By 9 o'clock that night, they'd already run another line around in the road over next to Thomas and McElveen so that the trains could get through. It tore up all the tracks on the north and southbound lane. They were having vacation Bible school. And they had these big cranes out there to lift those engines the next morning, and they made me go to vacation Bible school.
But you still go to church.
Church came first.
It's great to have somebody that was there. We had prisoner of war, and they were stationed in Florence at the airport. And what happened was that because of the lack of manpower, what you say, labor, the farmers got together and requested that the prisoner of war would work in the tobacco. And they would farm them out amongst Timmonsville, Lake City, King Street, whoever had a warehouse, Mullins, and that farmers kind of didn't like it at first, but got used to it. And they kind of crowded them around them and interfered at first. And then they figured out that it was a good thing. But, you know, they talked German. They didn't know what English was. So what they had to do was they had to have color tags. And they would put color tags on different grade of tobacco or different companies.
They worked just through the war, and after the war was over, they went.
Right, they went back home. Right. Football started 1945. When I was growing up and when y'all were growing up, we played King Street at the end of the year. We played at the first of the year. And then 1945 was a pretty good year. Had, on the football team, had Billy Lynch, had Herbie Turner, which was Jimmy Turner's brother, oldest brother. J.D. McElveen, Richard Cook, Wesley Floyd, Cal Godwin, Clyde King, Randy Grant. I keep repeating the same folks over and over again.
Hey, where was Macedonia?
Down there in Georgetown County, Berkeley County, Georgetown County, in that area, right near Jamestown, in that area. Real small school. It didn't matter how big the school was. If you fitted a football team, you could play them. It wasn't class ball. Margaret Duke was the city clerk forever. You know? And then you had Chief of Police Price, who was Jimmy Price, Diane Price, Mr. James Price, father, Walter Moody, Mr. Willie Cook, Miss Forrest Rogers, and the city attorney was Mr. Rat Whitlock. At the end of the year, the Rotarians would feed the football team, and during this, the end of the year, these were the guys that were on the team. Clifford Getty was on the football team. Charles Kelly was on the football team. Luther Neal Ward was on the football team.
No, Charles, where's Charles? Charles wasn't on the football team.
This way.
Who was? Yeah, but she was quite big one year.
And I would be mad if I was on what they call the B team. The A team, they started the lineup and got a charm break, a charm. And the seniors got one. $14 of them. (1946), we got a little change now. My 5th grade school teacher was Miss Mary B. Johnson, Miss Leon Johnson. Miss Emily, she was there forever. Miss Lizzie Gravely was there forever. Olin Powell, one of the first years he was. The 46 basketball team. Looks like I got more girls. Okay. Most of them are junior varsity and varsity too. Look at the boys. This must have been junior high, JV and varsity.
Yeah, the city, you see it? Yeah.
Okay. Got a chance to expand the town. Okay. An area of 1 square mile. Center would be right there at the depot. Then we had a group of people that wanted a new hotel. And that hotel was torn down a couple of years ago, down on McAllister Street. Mr. W. Flowers is chairman of the Lake City Hotel Corporation. 40 rooms. A new theater called the Probst Theater. Mr. Ed Diggs had electrical equipment store. And then Florida Motor Company moved to Dancing Street. Cook Auto Sales moved to a new quarters. Jack and Rupert Stewart opened up a grocery store. J.J. Hyden ran a dry goods store. Mr. Booker Spira opened up a boom factory. That's right on the corner of McAllister and Main Street,
That building that's still there.
where Spira
Yeah.
tire place was. And then I found out that the Whitehead Infirmary enlarged and had a black waiting room. Joe Webb and Dr. Thad opened up their office where Scotty Campbell's place is today. Secretary Epps is right there at the Citizens Bank. It was burned, and now in 1946 they rebuilt it. And the big brick warehouse extended Saul Street, Blandon Street, that whole block was big brick, except for the corner where the fruit stand is. Besides that area, that was the big brick. The baseball team, 1946. Jimmy Godwin, Arnold Graham, C.D. Prosser, Haggard Floyd, Wesley Floyd, Carl Langley, which is not his brother, and Mr. Flanagan was the coach. "40 graduates, 1946. Richard Cook, 1946. 1945, 1946. Milton Matthews, 1945-46. Bill Lynch, James Vernon Epps, Mona Rhodes, which was Charles Rhodes' sister. Milton was called Slug. Richard Cook was called Lord. Patsy Hodge. Who's Patsy Hodge?
And what's her name?
That was
Sister Sylvia,
Rob Moore's mama and Kathy Moore's mama. James Vernon Epps, John and Steve looks just like him. Carol Godwin, Red. Charles Dazell. Kenneth Leach, Doc. Mr. Bill Lynch, Bad Bill. Arnold Graham was called a little man, and he pitched for the Yankees. Clyde King ran Collins Department Store, and he was called the Rev. Forty of them. Mona Rhodes, and alma mater. I think this is about the first time we have the alma mater. Anybody want to sing it? Lions Club gets charter, and these are the charter members of the Lions Club 1946.
Kent, do you remember when the name McElveen was created? When did they start the Lock-a-Hen?
When did it start? Lake City High School annual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was?
What year?
What year did it start? 39. It was a brainchild of Mr. Jim McElveen. He was president of his class,
Oh, really?
and they came up with it. We had entertainment in Lake City. We had 2 racetracks. We had one at the airport and one at the country club. The one at the country club was owned by Charlie Green and his father. And it was called Green Acres Racetrack. Now this picture came from the Browns racetrack.
The old Green Stripe too,
Yeah.
Greyhound,
Where was that?
out there going towards King Street, where the warehouse and all is, and the airport.
At the airport?
Where the warehouse is, that used to be the dog racetrack, it was the first one that you came to, turned it into the airport. And the harness racetrack is right past it on the left. And they had Betty Wonders and all out there too, I often wondered how they got by with it.
They didn't have the women's tournament.
But they had 26 horses and 4 events.
That's pretty good size.
Lake City votes to expand the town 5 times what it was. And it was the first time since 1874. And we had a population of 5,000 folks.
Which direction were they proposing to expand to? Which direction were they
It went,
expanding
actually, it went all the way around Lake City to where the Lynch family is, on the west, on the east, to 52, well, the Gaddy Project, which is on the other side of 52, to the swamp at the hospital, and then to the south where pre-stress was. Where it is today, basically. We had a panther that was killed at the Hog Eye. Weighed 15 pounds, 36 inches long. 1946. Raiding the chickens.
Is that why Lacey was called the Panthers after that?
Not after that, no, the Panthers would. Really, we were known as the Swamp Rabbits.
Swamp rabbits?
Swamp Rabbits at the first. Then we were known as the Brown Panthers, and then later on we were known as the Panthers. And this was back in the 30s. Okay. 1920 was when we were known as the Swamp Rabbits. Yeah. Had boxing going on in town. Had a a welterweight champion named Kid Hatchell, born and raised in Lake City, went to New York and fought. It was amazing what things that we had growing up and before we were growing up. The school on Graham Road was built in 1929. It caught fire because of the fact that it was just out of city limits and it was burned to the ground. But then it was rebuilt the following year. And this is the way it looked before. And if you want to ride down to Graham Road, that school still, it's called the Old Folks Home. That's what we used to call it when I was teaching school, the alternative school. Miss Hal Gowdy. You see somebody you know in that picture? Jamie Daniels.
The name of most of them.
Sonny Mac. J.D. Whitehead was in that crowd.
The one with the squinty eyes. He's supposed to be amazing. He's on the third row, on the second one. That looks more like Snoopy. He's on the third row according to the.
Okay.
Next to Sandra. But he's really on the second row in the squinty. His hair comes like this.
The freezer locker. I didn't realize it had 600 individual lockers and was on Highway 52 at Beauregard, and it became known as Jim's IGA. The last piece of property on East Main Street, what would that be? Collins Department Store, when we're coming up. Because Mr. Collins out of Conway, today's price over $500,000 to have a department store in Lake City. The old Johnson Hanna building, when we were growing up, it was Rose's Dime Store. And then right beside it was the Daniel Hardware Store, which is the Green Frog today. Dog racing in town. The only, South Carolina's only dog track. Okay?
How long did it run?
Not long. Not long at all. Because I think Mr. Brown died
Brown guys in Brown did like the racetrack or the dog track. And I think she donated that property, I believe, to the church out there. And she plowed up, and then the year after he died, it was less than a year. She plowed up the racetrack and planted corn.
I don't think the Baptists or the Methodists or the Presbyterian like Mr. Brown, because he would have things be on Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday night, you know, and Sunday afternoon. I don't think. Now these are the guys that died during World War II. I was showing Greg Tommy, I found an article about Joe Tommy. He was ferrying airplanes across to from Guyana in South America, across Africa up to England, and he went down in the jungle. This was in 1944. They didn't bury him until 1947. They buried him in Lake City. I don't know if they, anything left of him or whatever, but they had a big ceremony for him. James Carter, Mr. Hoyt Carter's son.
Jimmy was on a plane. They were returning after the war, and they were supposed to have flown, I think, somewhere around Japan to Alaska on the way home, and the plane disappeared. It's never been found.
So we had 18 that gave their lives that in this Lake City area during World War II. Next time, 1947, 1948. Thank y'all for coming tonight.